Friends, there's a lot of things happening out there when it comes to nuclear weapons, and we got some big headlines, big updates we need to cover. We're going to jam-pack a whole bunch of these together into one big super update. Over the past week, we've had a lot of things happen, and as we connect the dots, you're going to see that nuclear war has potentially never been closer than it is today. We're going to be going over to the Korean Peninsula, where the United States and South Korea are plotting together to bring an end to the world, it seems like. North Korea is out there trying to figure out how it can nuke the United States, which is concerning, right? And the fact that they're trying and actually getting some help along the way is very concerning. Belarus out there making some serious threats. Apparently, they've gotten their hands on nukes. We got Iran out there saying that they're going to try to get their hands on nukes. And we have, of course, at the heart of it all, Russia. Russia out there suddenly doing a bunch of nuclear missile drills that we haven't seen the likes of since the Cold War. And you got to ask yourself the question, why in the world are they doing that now? It's expensive, costly, and yet you would only really need to do that if you were anticipating nuclear war in the near future. We got a lot to cover, friends. I hope you buckle up and hang on because we're going to cover a lot of stuff in the next few moments. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. If you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button or hit that like button. I don't usually say all that, but if you haven't, please do. All right, let's start off here in Russia because, like I said, that's kind of the heart of the matter. We got a lot of things happening out there, a lot of moving pieces. Russia just this past week launched a series of mobile missile drills. Now, the United States land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles basically are in these fortified missile silos, right? The United States, as well as China and some other countries, do similar things. But really, the United States and China are the ones that really do this, where we have lots of hardened silos in the ground, concrete bunkers for the missiles, and then we spread them out so that basically you know where they are, but you have to drop a nuke basically on each one of them in order to actually destroy them. And that's going to take you a lot of nukes, right? You're probably not going to be able, it's going to be like one big whack-a-mole kind of thing. So that's how the United States does it. You basically can see all the silos, and everybody knows where the silos are. Now, you don't know which ones are full and which ones are empty. So they're always kind of cycling them out that way, but they're not doing it nearly as much as what Russia does, because Russia doesn't do silos. They have their intercontinental ballistic missiles on trucks, and they just drive them around. The problem is that's kind of expensive. So do they really drive them around a lot? Not necessarily. Now, since the fall of the Soviet Union, they haven't really felt the need to really drive them all around constantly. However, just this past week, they did some major drills where they were really moving their ICBMs around, playing shuffle card, right? They're just moving them around rapidly, putting up camouflage. We haven't seen this type of activity since the end of the Cold War. So why is Russia suddenly getting very interested in moving these missiles around so frequently and so much? Why would you do that unless you really saw nuclear war on the horizon? It's a lot of fuel to move these things around. It's a lot of crew wear and tear on the crews. So this is definitely something that's got some attention internationally. What are they preparing for? And if you think that they're preparing for a potential nuclear first strike or even deploying nuclear weapons in Ukraine, this may explain why they're suddenly much more interested in the nuclear survivability of their land-based ICBMs. So not only that, but there was a poll that just came out this past week that a large portion of the Russian population supports President Putin's deployment of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And that's concerning. I mean, I don't think many Americans would agree with the fact that we should deploy nuclear weapons in Ukraine. I don't think you'd be hard-pressed to get out of the single digits in percentage there. But over in Russia, with the war the way it's going, and also just a lot of the Russian perspective on these things, they are apparently game for that. And that should be definitely concerning to us. Now, whether we see a tactical nuclear weapon used in Ukraine, used by Russia to gain the upper hand and to really bring a swift end to the Ukrainian war, that might be the case. Or, as I keep saying, we are vulnerable to a massive Russian surprise nuclear attack. And I know a lot of you guys go, well, that just means the end of the world. That means they're going to get it just as bad as us. I'm telling you, they could take out our nuclear weapons. If they defang us, if they take out all of our nukes, or most of them, we're going to be in a world of hurt. That's serious, friends. They could potentially take out our Ohio ballistic missile submarines. I've talked about that before, about how that's possible. They have developed the Poseidon torpedo, which is designed to take out cities or something stupid like that. People are like, oh, it's going to be a wall of water that can attack, that can hit cities and stuff. Why wouldn't they just use a missile? They can just use a missile, okay? The simple fact is that those Poseidon torpedoes are very clearly aimed at taking out our Ohio ballistic missile submarines. Their hypersonic nuclear-tipped missiles are very much aimed at taking out our land-based missiles. So when you look at things, they could launch a surprise attack on us. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't be risky. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be casualties, but the fact that Russia can get something like 80% of its population underground into hardened bunkers within a few hours, compared to the United States, which nobody even knows of where bunkers are. Like, the idea of getting Americans underground is just like laughable. Like, we haven't built bunkers since the 60s, right? So we got that. We have Belarus acting out here too. Just Sunday, they issued a major statement that it would use nuclear weapons if its sovereignty and independence were threatened. One, you should ask yourself the question, wait a minute, Belarus has nukes? And the answer to that is, well, technically no. But last year, Russia announced that they were going to be giving tactical nuclear weapons, basing them on Belarusian territory. So they're going to house nuclear weapons in Belarus, which certainly makes Europe a little skittish. If they're hypersonic missiles tipped with nuclear weapons, the fact is that those hypersonic missiles could be over the UK, over London, within 10 to 11 minutes. They could be over Germany in 4 to 5 minutes. That's kind of concerning. And Poland in like a minute or two. Needless to say, Poland doesn't like this. Germany doesn't like this. None of the European countries like the fact that Russia has put weapons of mass destruction in Belarus. Now, the fact that Belarus is out there saying that they will nuke anyone who threatens their sovereignty and independence brings up the troubling question of, wait a minute, Belarus isn't supposed to have control of these nukes. Russia is supposed to have control of these nukes. They're the ones with the launch authority, and they're just housing them on Belarusian territory. But the comments made certainly raises the specter of, wait a minute, has Russia actually just given these nukes and launch authority to the country of Belarus? Because that's a very different thing than what the United States does and our allies do, where we base nuclear weapons in other people's countries. And we're going to get back to that because the United States is talking about doing something extremely dangerous over on the Korean Peninsula. So there's a lot of questions being asked right now about Belarus and Russian nukes that are there. But I think at the very minimum, whether they're overstating their ability to launch these things, there are real nuclear weapons in Belarus, and they are definitely a threat to Europe. Also, just the question of we were wondering when they'd get there. Russia announced last year that they were going to send them, but we never got confirmation that they were there. But apparently Belarus is telling us that they're there now. All right, we have of course the issue that's been kind of hanging over our heads, Cosmos 2553, which is a Russian satellite spinning around the world. It has been alleged by some lawmakers in Congress, the United States Congress, that it is a weapons test platform, that it is testing the feasibility of putting nuclear weapons in space. Now, they're not saying that there are nuclear weapons on Cosmos 2553, but they're saying that it's pretty clear that what Russia is doing with Cosmos 2553 is they're testing the possibility of basing nuclear weapons in space. And that has people on edge, naturally speaking. Let's go over to the Korean Peninsula because this is where things are really heating up, friends. All right, so apparently we're just receiving word that the United States and South Korea are in discussions on basing possibly United States nuclear weapons in South Korea. Now, what's being discussed is a nuclear pact between the United States and South Korea. Now, depending on what that nuclear pact looks like, we could have some very significant problems. The first thing is, if this is basically us making a guarantee to South Korea that if North Korean troops or anyone crosses the 58th parallel, that the United States will use nuclear weapons to attack whoever's attacking South Korea. That would not necessarily break any kind of armistice. We have an armistice in place. Is it armistice or ceasefire, basically? We have basically an agreement with North Korea. Hey, you stay over there, we'll stay over here, and we won't shoot at each other very much. We're still technically at war with North Korea, and South Korea is still technically at war with North Korea. North Korea is still technically at war with South Korea. So it's still a hot war, but there is like a ceasefire in place. But there are all sorts of stipulations to this, including how many U.S. troops can be in South Korea at any given time. That's why the United States has to swap them out, and they have to go through a specific process to make sure that too many U.S. troops aren't in South Korea at any given time. And there's also a composition of like how many armored vehicles and what composition the United States can keep. So it's like what kind of troops they can have. And I think there's also stipulations on where they can be in the continent at any given time. So one of those stipulations is that the United States cannot base nuclear weapons in South Korea. So if what's being discussed is the United States housing nuclear weapons in South Korea, one, North Korea is not going to like that at all. And that will potentially be a breach with North Korea and basically kick things off into a hot war potentially from the North's perspective. Two, if we base nuclear weapons in South Korea, China will throw a hissy fit. Like they will not like that at all. You know how like Europe doesn't like Russian nukes in Belarus? Well, China will basically take the same perspective on American nukes in South Korea. That may be what they're kind of counting on, wanting China to basically throw a hissy. But let's just say that would be a very high stakes game, and Sleepy Joe is not really up to the task of handling these type of negotiations or dealing with this type of stress. When I've talked about hypersonic missiles being launched outside the air identification zone over Canada, that we would be looking at 10 to 15 minutes before those missiles could be potentially over our northern missile sites, and about 15 minutes before they'd be over our southernmost missile sites. That's the question. What happens if at 2 a.m. in the morning, the call comes in, we identify these missiles coming in, Will we be able to wake up the president, communicate to him what's going on, have him make a decision, and have us launch those nuclear weapons? And will that scenario even play out? Possibly. But even the fact that we could suggest we could sit down and have that conversation of whether the United States would be able to launch those missiles in time is certainly one that we shouldn't be having. We should be having a conversation where, no, that's absurd. The president, of course, would push that button before the missiles would get over our missile sites. But that's not the situation we have right now. We have a situation where our president can't really communicate clearly for any length of time more than like 2 minutes. And any time past 8 p.m., apparently he's just not with it, okay? That's by admission from the White House. Anytime past 8 p.m., he's just non-functional. So at 2 a.m. or, 9 p.m., would we have a problem with being able to launch our nuclear weapons? Because the president would be like, it's his nap time. I don't know. But what we have going on in North Korea is moving forward with its development of the Hwasong-16 solid propellant intermediate range ballistic missiles. They are testing things that they shouldn't be testing. Now, they just did a test of a MIRV missile. Now, MIRV is multiple independent reentry vehicles, basically one missile, multiple warheads. So one missile, hit multiple cities, or one missile can hit multiple missile sites, right? If North Korea is concerned with South Korea, why do you need an intermediate range? And, well, let's just say it this way. They're trying to figure out how to nuke United States cities. Now, you could look at it from the sunny side and say, well, North Korea is just trying to secure itself so that if anyone attacks North Korea, it could then nuke the United States, and that's a deterrent. But who in the world is actually talking about attacking North Korea? South Korea is not talking about invading North Korea. The United States has no interest whatsoever in going to North Korea. So what are they afraid of? And what are they trying to develop these weapons for? Now, they tested the MIRV missile, but it didn't go so well. Right now, we still haven't seen them deploy or test a reentry vehicle that can actually take a intercontinental ballistic missile and bring it down through reentry. Of course, you got to deorbit, which takes up a lot of friction, brings up a lot of heat. You always see the heat tiles on these things. Basically, North Korea can't figure out how to bring a re-entry vehicle through the atmosphere onto its target. It keeps breaking up in the atmosphere. So the idea that they're testing a multiple independent re-entry vehicle weapon is concerning, right? Now, why is that concerning? I mean, they're trying this and we maybe think like they just can't figure it out. They won't be able to figure it out. It's fine. Except for the fact that Putin just visited the short dictator of North Korea. And Putin has scientists who actually know how to make these type of weapons work. And Putin just got authorization from Kim Jong-un to send troops, North Korean troops, to Ukraine. We also see the fact that North Korea has authorized the dispatch of large amounts of artillery shells, and they now have a mutual defense pact. So why, if North Korea has a mutual defense pact with Russia, if anyone attacks North Korea, they're attacking Russia proper, which goes without saying that Russia would respond with nuclear weapons with, probably. And if that's the case, then why is North Korea still pursuing these nuclear weapons? And my concern all along with Iran and North Korea getting nuclear weapons has been the fact, what if someone like Putin has a conversation with Kim Jong-un and says, hey, How about you come to Russia and we set you up like really nice. We get you a mansion, we get you all the things you want. You bring whatever people out of North Korea you want, but you're going to launch a massive nuclear strike on the United States. You're going to launch a whole bunch of ballistic missiles in North Korea, and then you're going to scoot over here to Russia. We'll accept you, and the United States will, attack North Korea and wipe it from the face of the earth probably, but you'll be safe in, Russia. We'll make it worth your while. You do this for us, and we'll take care of you. And it won't really hurt you at all. When you're a North Korean dictator who doesn't care about your people one lick, you can imagine how that might actually be a conceivable conversation. And Russia gets a great deal. United States may be damaged or severely hurt, and all Russia loses is North Korea, who they couldn't care less about anyway. They could do the same thing with Iran. If they can get these countries, these vassal countries, to do something really bad, and then Russia goes, we didn't know that was going to happen. We had nothing to do with that. Don't look at us. That is a very real concern. Whether Russia gives North Korea missile technology, EMP technology, or those type of things, that's been something that's been postulated for many years. I'm not the only one who thought that. I mean, that's been a thing that's been kicked around for 25 years plus. I remember reading about that way back in the day in high school. Okay, so this is a thought, a concern out there that military planners in the West have had, that a vassal state launches a major strike on the United States, and then what do we have to respond with? Like, how do we respond to like China or Russia? How do we pin it on them when it was clearly this other state? We'd have to somehow pin that nuclear weapon onto Russia somehow before we could actually do anything. And even then, does that really get us anywhere? If we can't prevent it from happening, does that get us anywhere? So that's some of the updates that we're seeing out there. Iran, of course, threatening to pursue a nuclear weapon or nuclear weapons if they don't get their way. If we keep targeting, and if Israel keeps targeting their Islamic Revolutionary Guards, they're basically their special forces that are going around all over the Middle East, Hamas, Hezbollah, training these guys on how to attack Israel and the United States military, all this kind of stuff like that. Iran is saying that if you don't stop attacking us, attacking our troops that are causing this problem around the Middle East, we're going to develop nuclear weapons. Also, you have to remove all of your sanctions on Iran, or we're going to develop nuclear weapons. So, as you can see, a lot happening over the last week and a half all over the world. Things are heating up. World War III is on the brink here, and we're already into World War III. It's just a matter of how fast and how far this is going to go. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Thanks so much. I will see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.